We have a great show for you today. We're gonna go dive. This is gonna be more of a political show. We're going to dive deep into some of the national, politics right now. I mean, dive deep into Republican primary, talk about possible Democratic primary, and how that race is heating up. Well, as best is gonna heat up. And we're also gonna dive into anything that the conversation flows. So I'm gonna pass on to Seth so you can say hey to you guys as we gear up for the first topic. But yeah, Seth, how you been this past week?
It's been good. I've been very busy still. I'm a bartender and I work at a movie theater, so things have still been popping since the Barbie Oppenheimer stuff. But I'm ready to talk about politics. We had
All
a
right.
long episode last week. That was definitely the longest one so far. That was like 2.5 hours, eh?
Yeah, that was tough, but it was
I
tough
had fun. It
because
was pretty late for you though.
yeah, because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
But the topics were great and the show was awesome.
yeah, I like that.
It was just a tough thing, like fully charged up. And towards the end there, you could start probably see me dark tails. Like, yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah.
hold it together
I felt
because
like
it's
we
like,
needed to finish it. We were pretty far in. I'm like, we're almost there. Let's finish up.
yeah, like we were like in the middle of the freaking questionnaire, and we had to do our best to make sure that we finished that thing up. But we
Yeah,
did, and we got some great results. I got to figure out, where my political stance lies, and it's very close to Steph's. Steph,
pretty close.
Steph is still more progressive.
Definitely,
Um,
I'm
by
definitely
not,
very anarchist leaning.
yeah,
Yeah.
by not Jerry still progressive, but more, but we're pretty, we're I would say we're pretty on par with each other when it comes
Yeah.
to the issues.
I
So
honestly think you're farther left than I expected. I thought you'd be kind of like
that's
negative
like,
three, -4, but you were -5 something on the economic scale, which is
see,
pretty
I,
damn progressive. Gotta
I
respect it.
am, and then that there's so much room there, and on the progressive spectrum, so
Yeah,
to have differing opinions and still be a progressive. So that's always
most
good
definitely.
news. Yeah.
That whole
Uh,
bottom green square, that's anybody on there, they're homie in my view.
your homie, they're
Yeah,
close.
they're homie. If they're left of right or left of center on economics and they're, you know, libertarian leaning, not authoritarian leaning, they're cool. As long as
Yeah,
you care about freedom and equality, you're in my team.
that's it.
I've been like watching some documentaries about Nelson Mandela and stuff like that. I think that's
Yeah, it's a great
there's a lot of
man.
interesting political scenes around the world, stuff going on.
Yeah. I spent today kind of going over some of the Democrats in California, the congressional Democrats.
Yeah,
So I was like, I went through the whole list, and I was just like, let's, California has, I think, the most Democrats throughout the whole entire country.
yeah. I mean, they're the
It's the
most
one state.
representatives overall, and it's a Democratic state, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really
Yes.
cool Democrats there. A lot of ones that are really cringe as well,
Yeah.
like
So I
like Dianne
you know,
Feinstein.
yeah, I was diving deep into the California Democratic scene. So I didn't find anybody I truly liked. I mean, it was okay.
Barbara Lee is really cool. I like Ro Khanna is really cool. Katie Porter is really cool. I don't hate Gavin Newsom. I'm not a giant fan, but he does good work.
Yeah,
There's
well, I'm not talking. I was just talking about the congressional delegate for California, but yeah, Gavin Newsom was pretty cool as the governor.
yeah.
I mean,
I'd list a handful of Democratic governors above him. Like I'm a big Tim Walz out of Minnesota fan. I like J.B. Pritzker. You know that.
yeah, you're a big JB Pitcher guy.
Yeah. I like the Midwestern Dems. They do good stuff with
Yeah,
small majorities. So at least in Minnesota. But
yeah.
yeah, if Joe Biden doesn't end up running, it's gonna be Gavin Newsom. Almost definitely.
I heard a conspiracy theory of that. I didn't know how true it was. Now you just said it, and it's like maybe it is true.
No,
Like
I mean
they're kind
the
of
Democratic
gearing him up.
donuts are all in on Gavin Newsom. They just don't
Yeah,
switch Biden for Gavin Newsom. That's the
I
thing.
think that he's being served as a second option if Biden
Definitely
doesn't seem to
Supreme
make
Kamala.
it. Yeah, it looks like that's what they're gearing him up for, like being the second option if Biden doesn't make it all the way. Um, without primarying, which is pretty smart because
Yeah,
then you don't primary your own president, and you'll say, "Well, this
especially
guy
one
was going to
that's
win anyway," huh?
especially a president that's more or less the same political camp as you. Like he's not. They're
Yeah.
both kind of liberal, not necessarily centrist, not necessarily progressive. So I think it's interesting. I think the only way Joe Biden doesn't run is his health, or actually, I think that if Donald Trump doesn't end up being the nominee, probably not because of his election results, but because of the indictments or
Hmm.
him being stuck in trials and anything like that. I think him being out of the picture would definitely look in favor of the Republicans. The Republican field would be favored over Joe Biden. That's my view. So I
Yes,
think as
I
soon as
agree.
that's the case, and it's uh, first of all, Ron DeSantis, he's the second overall, but I don't think that's
No, he's
true.
losing.
He's the top. He's the top guy after Trump, but I just
No, he's not gonna make it.
I don't think
He's
he would even make it.
because the thing is that his only saving grace is debates, and he's not a great debater. Like
Yeah,
me being from Florida, I've seen him debate. He's a terrible debater, actually. Um, so he's gonna go down even more when people realize he can't debate on the issues.
I don't even know
And
if he'll make it to the debates. I just mean like, all right. So
well, is he
I don't
polling
know
high
when
enough?
this Trump thing is gonna go down. But there are
But
very credible grounds saying that he might not make it to the election. And
well,
if that was the case, and there's enough time where Trump is out of the picture, and then it's just the field, I think that somebody like Glenn Youngkin, who's a very smart politician out of Virginia, and I think he would be like the Republicans' absolute best option.
so right now the average polling has Trump by way ahead. If Trump were to bounce, DeSantis would drop to 14, but I don't think the Trump people would jump to DeSantis.
I think it'd be
I,
split, obviously, because it's such a big base.
it's
But
such a big
DeSantis has
base.
been running. The thing that was going for DeSantis is he was Trump without the drama, without you know, the harmful rhetoric.
Yeah,
But now he has been running to the right of Trump. He thinks he's going to try to paint Trump as the moderate, as a centrist or something. Well,
yeah,
he
and
is the true conservative, which has only pushed his actual base away from him. So Ron
yeah,
DeSantis is kind of cooked right now, where he's only representing the far right, the most conservative of his base or of the Republican base.
yeah,
It's
and
leaving such a big avenue for some other candidate, who I think would be Glenn Youngkin, to jump in the picture and take the whole thing.
yeah, because honestly, the way DeSantis, which is so stupid, recently he just fired another attorney general, another state attorney, and it's like,
Yeah, that.
dude, you're running for president of the United States. Are you an idiot? Why would you fire a black state attorney?
Oh, I didn't know that too.
It's like when people already think you're like low key racist.
I don't know about Loki.
Well, yeah, he's high key racist,
Yeah,
not even low key. And why would you even? That's just I don't know who's in his camp. I'm not a Republican, but it's like that's not a smart idea, guy. Like, why would you do that? Like, you're in the middle of a presidential race and you're gonna fire a black sitting
did you see
state
that
attorney?
one campaign video that the DeSantis team had approved with the like
Oh yeah,
Nazi
yeah, yeah,
symbolism in it?
yeah,
That like it wasn't like an outside person for DeSantis. It was the DeSantis marketing team said like, you know what? I like this. This
yeah.
Nazi
Let's put
stuff
this
is
one
real
out.
great. Like overt Nazi symbolism
Yeah,
in
and
his
it's
campaign ad.
like, what do you think you're running in 1950?
Yeah.
It's like,
He's running as a Dixiecrat or something.
yeah, and it's like, bro, have the first of all, let's just be honest. The racism still in America exists in
Oh yeah,
America.
especially in the
But
South.
do you really think it's a majority of America? It's like, come on. It's like maybe 10, 15%. And that's like the old baby boomer generation that's still
Mm-hmm.
alive. That probably thinks like that. And so like you're running for this, like you said, this far right campaign, and it's like Republicans are gonna look at you like, man, you're not electable in the general election. You're in your own primary. People are gonna look at you as like, there's no way you're gonna get blacks, Latinos, Democrats to come vote for you.
Yeah, no.
You're gonna lose. Like, even Trump can get some black votes, some Latino votes, some even some Democrats. I don't know what Democrat, but maybe some friend, some moderate Democrats.
There's a few. It's like 5 to 10% of Democrats voted for Trump.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like he has base he can pull, but DeSantis is like, who are you gonna pull from? It's like you're
Yeah, no,
running this.
it's very
Hmm?
risky. Like you're supposed to run like for you're trying to consolidate the Republican base, okay? So it makes sense that you're running as a conservative right now.
Yeah, yeah,
But like you are killing your general election odds. He has
yeah,
absolutely no shot anymore now because
and
like
the
people
yeah,
across the board perceive him as farther right than Trump. It's not just hyper political people. Like he's making headlines for being far right, and
yeah,
I mean, I think I just saw something like uh, phones, like K through 12 schools, they're like banning the use of phones or something like that. Like,
yeah,
good luck with the youth vote. Like,
yeah. He's like he's banned AP American. He's banned African American history.
yeah,
He's banned certain, and it's like, man, we're doing terrible in the state. It's
yeah,
like the Republican Party is like made us look so bad nationally. We're the third biggest, we're the third or fourth biggest state in the country,
yeah,
and
it's
we
up
look
there.
so bad nationally. It's like everyone's like laughing at us. It's like, man, you guys are going back to like 1950.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
mean, even the Republican base isn't the kind of they don't think that they're the kind of authoritarian, orderly type that they even were in the Nixon era. Like they think that they're the Freedom Party. So how are you running on banning this and banning that? Like you can't even defend yourself as like a party of freedom. We're
yeah,
he was started off like, well, we're the party of freedom in Florida. We're not going to institute these banning these mandates and this and that. And then he literally goes and does overtly authoritarian behavior, left and right, banning speech, banning this and that, ban from a state level. He can't even market himself as like the freedom guy anymore.
no,
Like,
and what's sad is I have a couple of companies that I'm the lawyer for, and they're getting killed in Florida. A lot of these companies that I represent are like saying like, look, we have no workers.
yeah,
It's like we have no workers. Laborers are not, you know, getting trucks to transport goods, and it's like and they're Republicans, and
mm-hmm.
yes, a Democrat. When it comes to my job, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. It's like work is
Yeah.
work.
Most
But
people, it doesn't matter what they are the day to day life.
yeah, yeah, but they're Republican, and they're just like they're so disappointed. There's like colleagues of mine who voted for DeSantis was just like, I don't know what happened. It's like they liked him, and then after his second term in office, he just went crazy.
Yeah,
And so, if your people that are Republicans are saying that in Florida, I can't imagine what the rest of the country is thinking about him. Is like, this is your base. And I think you can probably lose it in the primary
yeah,
to Trump. And
and
yeah,
that ruins his future chances too.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like you're going so far right where you can never. This is it.
Yeah, you can't come back from this.
You can't come back politically from this. It's like you are marrying all these statements, all this marketing, all this agenda for the rest of your political career, hoping that you become president this cycle, which anyone in their right political mind would have told you that you should, if you're going to run this cycle, be a test run and
Yeah,
then run again in 4 years.
his
But they'll put
biggest flaw was trying to beat Trump at his own game.
yeah, and it's like you're not gonna beat Trump in that respect. It's like the only person I know can go toe for toe with Trump in that way is Bernie Sanders
Yeah,
and
good point.
Joe Biden. And the only reason
Yeah,
why Joe Biden can do it is because Joe Biden has such a big name ID where it's like you can't really label him because it's like, bro, he's been labeled. We all know who Joe Biden
yeah.
is.
I mean, he's kind of. I wouldn't say he's a flip flopper, but like he's been moderate, he's been progressive, he's been all over the board. Like
Yeah, but you don't.
you can't realistically call him like a socialist or whatever. Like that's what they're trying to do always.
Yeah, and
So
that's the problem. Trump's biggest strength is labeling. Once he
yeah,
labels you as something, that's who you are. And it's like he can't do that. And that's why he didn't run against Biden in the last election cycle because he knew he couldn't label him. Everyone knew who he was. It's like even Bernie, he can't really label that well because Bernie owns it. He's like he just,
Yeah.
and so he's like you can't really label me because I labeled me. And so there's certain candidates where Trump does very terrible with because he can't really label them because it's like who doesn't know Joe Biden, who doesn't know Bernie Sanders, who doesn't know Hillary Clinton. Like even he tried to brand Hillary Clinton, he couldn't even do that. What did
I
Hillary Clinton?
mean,
It was a
yeah,
bad
I mean
job.
the things he branded her as were like not even necessarily false. It's kind of like it wasn't really changing anybody's perception, at least. Like crooked,
Yeah,
she's lying, she's a liar, she's a politician. It's like, yeah,
yeah, that wasn't
we
changing
all
people's.
are.
Yeah, like that wasn't changing people's minds by Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's biggest issue is like she was a Clinton,
Yeah,
and that's her biggest issue. Is like Americans hate dynasties. We just do,
that's they
and
do and they don't.
so
They do
hmm?
in theory. They do in theory, but in reality, I kind of think they really like dynasties. Like, look at the
No,
Kennedys.
well, okay, the Kennedys are great, but if you look, there's only been one president that's been a Kennedy.
President, but I mean, there's been senators, there's been representatives, there's been almost a second president if he didn't get assassinated. Bobby Kennedy probably would have
Yeah,
been president if he hadn't been shot.
but you got
Ted
Jeff, you got
Kennedy
Rob,
was he majority leader of the Senate? Something maybe he's just
Ted,
high up in the
Ted
Senate.
Kennedy.
Ted Kennedy.
Oh, he had so much power. I don't think he was like ever a leader, but
Yeah,
he could be a leader. He had that kind of power in
exactly.
the Senate. Um,
Joe
I mean, yeah.
Kennedy the third.
Well, but let's be honest. Is that America really like in dynasties, or they're just running in Boston, Massachusetts, where they are a
Well,
dynasty?
RFK Jr. is
What was
kind
he?
of
What
he's
was
got
where was
20%. Sorry.
RFK Jr.? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
thinking of our senior. Jesus,
no,
RFK Jr. is running now.
he's getting 20% in the Democratic primary just because of his last name.
I don't know if it's his last name or he just like I've seen there was this like a hip hop show on YouTube called the Hoffa. It's pretty cool. It's like they go through like old rappers, talk about like old rap beefs, and like I think they did like one with Ja Rule, 50 Cent, and then they
Oh,
did
that's
another
cool.
one where like yeah, and they broke down the whole Tupac Biggie thing, and
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. So I saw RFK Jr. in that, like it's a podcast.
Yeah, he is marketing himself fairly well, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm like, you don't really see presidents on a show like this, right? And but he's like, he's talking, he's talking about his drug addiction, and the problem is he's just really authentic, and
Yeah.
that's what's up in his poll numbers because people are like,
I think it's a definitely contributing factor that his last name is Kennedy. Like that's the thing that
well,
separates him from Marianne Williamson, in my opinion. Because Marianne Williamson is much more in line with the Democratic base and her voting policies and stuff like that. But she's
but
easily dismissible because she's just a no name who hasn't been elected, blah, 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 blah. But RFK
yeah,
is also a no name that's never been elected, but he's a Kennedy. So they have to talk about a Kennedy.
but here's my thing that people don't understand. People vote for president, they're voting for personality. They're not
Yeah,
voting for
mostly.
policy. It's like that's what people don't understand. With the presidency, you're never going to separate yourself because of the policies. It's always about
It's about rhetoric.
it's rhetoric and what your character is. And
Yeah.
people are like, that's why people that same voters who vote for Bernie will vote for Trump because everyone knows Bernie is like the uncle in the room
Yeah.
or like the grandpa in the room. It's just like I don't care what they do. I'm gonna die believing what I believe.
At least you
And
trust him. At least you
yeah, it
know
makes
he'll
you
tell you
trust
what he
them. Like
thinks.
you know that guy is in your family. Like there's at least one person in your family that's that guy. And Trump is that one racist person in your family is like, dude, this person is clearly racist. But you can resonate with that because we all have one. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care if you're black, white, Latino. We all have that one person in the family like that dude's probably pretty racist.
We don't have
And
Hillary Clinton in the family, though. Nobody has a Hillary.
no, no one has a Hillary Clinton in the family.
She's too
Uh,
relatable or whatever.
yeah, it's all about relatability when it comes to the presidency. I mean, if you look at their last couple of presidents, those guys have all been a guy you would know just hanging around. Obviously, you wouldn't know someone like Barack Obama because he was like
Yeah, he's a
super
unique figure, but he's like a movie celebrity. So they kind of
yeah, it
treat him
was like
as that.
yeah, it was like that.
Yeah.
But Bill Clinton was relatable. He
He was
played
relatable
jazz.
and like a movie celebrity.
Yeah, right. He played jazz on Arsenio Hall. Like, I mean, presidents, go play jazz, like on live TV. And
Yeah.
then you have George Bush. Hate him or you don't like him. I don't really
No, he's
care. But
relatable.
he's a guy would drink beer on national television and be like, man, that beer was awesome. He's just that guy. That's just George Bush. And it always comes down to who's the more relatable. Like when you look at presidents who fail or people fail bids for the president, it's usually a guy who's like very straight, very goal oriented. Those guys 90% of the chance fail at becoming president
Like Mitt
because it's like Mitt
Romney,
Romney, like
Hillary, John
Hillary,
Kerry.
John. Yeah, just a straight guy who like I went to school. I'm an academic.
Yeah.
I I'm always on time, and it's like, bro, that's not the embodiment
They're
of
too
America.
goal oriented, too policy oriented, too like
Yeah,
running on the record versus running on relatability and rhetoric.
yeah. It's all about your character. People are voting for president because they want to know that the person has character. And the reality is, when I look at all these presidents, all these people who are running for presidents, like, and I can look at this field right now for the Republican Party. Like Pence is going to lose because he has no kind of character.
He's got
Hutchinson,
no everything.
he has nothing. The
Yeah.
person that's why Trump is leading because when you look at the people running against him, none of these people have character. DeSantis,
Tim Scott a little bit, but he also has no realistic base.
Tim
That's the
Scott's
problem.
problem is he wants to run. Tim
He
Scott's
wants to be
problem
Obama with the right.
he wants to be the Obama on the right, and the problem with being Obama on the right, you're on the right.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like it's like just face it. Like you can be a successful black man and
I didn't
say
even
that
mean
the
like
race.
because he's black. I meant like he's like, oh, I'm a unifier. I'm a centrist, but also I don't know. He's
Well,
trying to
he's not a centrist. Like
he's
that's
running as
bullshit.
a centrist,
Yeah, that's bullshit.
but
I
his
would say
politics
that
don't reflect it.
no, I would say that he's a black man who's a conservative,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that if you can articulate the fact that there are certain things that you have to speak about as a black man.
Hmm.
It, and it's no fault of yourselves. It's just the reality. If you're a black man in America, there is a historical racism and historical slavery. I mean, that's not the. I'm not saying that that's the predominant issue of today, but that
Its consequences and its fallout are, but not
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah, and that has to be what you have to lead with. But if you're a black man in this country and you're not willing to have those conversations or talk about that, I don't care if you're conservative or a liberal, you're not serious for president. Like I can't take you seriously. It's like
Definitely way too dismissive of the issue.
yeah, it's like oh, like we're better than that. We're past that. That's what he's always trying to say. Like
Yeah.
we're past that. It's like no, it's a I'm a successful lawyer and attorney, but I know I walk in the shoes of a lot of black men before me
Yeah.
who made a lot of sacrifices. I mean, there's that journey is there. Now, do I live on that? No. I mean, I understand that that's my history and that's my background, but that's not where I'm going.
Yeah.
But I'm more than willing, and you hear me talk about it all the time with yourself. It's like I'm more than willing to talk about it. It's not something that's going to be a predominant conversation because I believe that there's other issues in America besides that.
Hmm.
But it's still an identity. It's still my character. It's just like Ukraine for you. It's like
Yeah.
you're not going to sit there as an descendant of Ukrainians and then be like, yeah, I'm an American now, and that's kind of the Ukrainian Russian problem. It's like no,
Yeah. I mean, it affects all of us.
yeah,
I,
it affects all of us, and it's your heritage. It's where you
hmm.
grew up, or not where you grew up,
Yeah,
but where your family
I'm not
grew up.
necessarily like I need to devote my life to talking about this topic, but at the same time, I'm never gonna take the position that like this
Yeah.
Ukrainian territory should just be ceded to Russia because like oh well this is the best way to end the war. Let's just give them exactly what they want. That's not gonna set any sort of precedence or anything like
Hmm.
it's okay to invade nations or imperialize or further expand your borders. It seems kind of obvious that if you want to defend some sort of national heritage or some sort of precedence of if you really care about borders and stuff like that, as Republicans seem to care about so much, you should care about other countries trying to expand their borders into other territories and taking over populations that don't belong to them or have never existed under their governance or whatever. It seems illogical to just assume that if somebody takes over your country, that to end the dispute, you need to just give them what they wanted in the first place, because that's just going to make other countries be like, well, if we just invade and hold long enough, they'll just give us what we want. Then other
Yeah.
countries will take over other countries, and that seems like not a path we want to go down. So it
Yeah.
doesn't
And
just
so,
affect my heritage; it affects every other country that could be at risk of being invaded.
yeah. And I agree with you. And I think that those conversations, I mean, like you were saying, it's important to have. Like you were saying, the global implications of Ukraine
Yeah,
is just as important as your heritage, but both are needed. You can't
yeah,
just talk about one and not the other, you know. And it's like when I see, when the presidential candidate avoiding an obvious topic, like you're a black man running a conservative, how do you feel about that? And you're just trying to avoid it. It's like, oh yeah, we're past that. It's like, no, you just haven't articulated or understand yourself well enough.
it just comes
To,
across as weak.
yeah, it's weak. It's like you don't know how to articulate it in a way where you can express your conservative viewpoints
Yeah,
with a
like
racist.
you can realistically talk about racism having been a formal issue in the country, and how certain things that can affect you, racism can still be a problem in society today. But blah 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 blah. It happened 200 years ago. We don't need to focus on it. We can focus on the future. Like he can do it in a conservative way, but he's kind of not having the conversation at all because he doesn't
Yeah,
want to remind his conservative base that slavery happened, because that's the last thing they want. Conservatives
yeah,
hate talking about slavery. They just hate it because they're like, oh, that happened so long ago, as if their family members currently alive were not alive during Jim Crow era,
yeah,
which they are. There's current Republican voters that would have been in packs of white supremacist groups while they were protesting desegregation, kind of stuff like that. It's still existing today. The people are
yeah.
still alive today.
It still exists, and there's still an undertone of that in America, and so the avoiding of the topic is not the answer. It's like, I'm sorry, you're a black man, you're running. This is going to be something that I would think if you're going to run for president that you would have an answer for, because that's going to be the first question they ask you.
Yeah.
Before they even get to the other topics, because I mean, this is I don't know if you can't handle that. It's how can you run for presidency? You should know that's coming. It's like this
You
is
make a
like
good point of what you said there about, like, you got to expect that's going to be the first thing to ask you, because it's pretty obvious that there's not been a lot of black Republicans, okay, especially on the main stage, especially running for president. I mean, there was Herman Cain and Ben Carson, but
yeah.
they were never taken that seriously. They were never even elected officials. Well, no, they weren't elected officials. I almost changed
No,
for
neither
Ben
one. I
Carson.
mean,
Got appointed.
I think Herman Cain was
He was
well,
a
actually pretty both accomplished.
They were
Uh,
accomplished, sure, but
they were
that's
accomplished.
they weren't even accomplished in the field of politics. He was
No, no, no,
some
no.
pizza company CEO or something like that, and Ben Carson
Yeah.
was some,
Well, he
you
was a
know,
world renowned
or no,
doctor.
brain doctor.
Yeah, he's a brain doctor. The problem with them was it's just I think there was a couple of when I look at that race, the one that Trump won, the first one, 2016,
Yeah,
there's a couple of dynamics there. There was an issue of like Latinos because there was two Latinos running, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz,
yeah,
maybe someone else, but those are two notable ones.
they're the main ones for sure.
Yeah, two notable ones. And then you had the blacks who were running, which was Herman Cain and Ben
Well, Herman
Carson.
Cain was 2012.
Oh, was it? It wasn't. You
Yeah,
wasn't 2016.
no, he died right after
Oh yeah,
2016.
he did die.
He died because
Yeah,
he died in it was right when COVID started. That's right. He
yeah,
died.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry,
He didn't die at a Trump rally, but he got COVID at a Trump rally.
you got COVID at Trump rally. That was irony. But no, when I seen, but not Herman Cain, but he was kind of the. I
He
think
was the Ben Carson of 2012.
yeah, he was the Ben Carson. Ben Carson. Now Tim Scott. Tim Scott. I mean, obviously politically, he's accomplished way more than they have.
Yeah,
But those. I actually think Herman Cain did pretty well.
yeah, he was
In
leading.
that
Well, actually, also sort of Ben Carson for points of time they were leading the polls,
yeah, Ben
way in the
Carson
sun.
did well. Yeah, they both did kind of well. I don't think they did bad.
They didn't do
Uh,
well, but they started off well.
Well, yeah, they end up obviously losing, but I think going in their expectation wasn't great, and I think they left with a better impression of who they were. I guess after. Uh, but once again, it's really hard as a black person to run a conservative party. But if you're going to do it, you know, you have to understand that you have to have a coalition, and you have to understand that there's certain conversations you're going to have because you're going to have to make sure your coalition is very broad in the Republican Party. Because when I look at it, I mean, Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, their coalition, I think they would have been good general candidates, but the conservative movement, and I hope it never does grow, but in order for it to grow, they have to kind of broaden their demographics because they're very, very heavily relying on majority, predominantly whites, and
White
really
people are becoming
evangelical whites, not
smaller.
even white.
They're
Hmm?
becoming a smaller majority of the country as immigration
Yeah,
and
yeah,
repopulation happens. Like white people are becoming less and less a majority. So you can't just
yeah,
rely on having a majority white base in your
yeah,
political
and
anymore.
yeah, and that's not even that. I mean, you don't have much of a white base either. Because it's not like majority of whites are like, oh, we want to be Republicans. It's like no, majority of whites are Democratic.
Well, no,
It's
I think a majority of white people are Republicans, but it also depends on where you are,
yeah, yeah.
more geographic.
Let's say it's 50-50. Let's say whites is 50% Democrat, 50% Republicans,
I think
right?
it's 60-40, but yeah, something like that.
I like your number better, 60-40. Yeah, 60-40. So that's not a big majority if you
Yeah,
don't have the Latino vote or the black vote, and 40% of the white vote doesn't go vote for you. So that means you only have 60%, and you Republicans calling card has always been suppress the vote, suppress the vote, suppress the vote, suppress the
yeah,
vote, because we know statistically the math doesn't add up.
yeah. I
There's
think
way
there's
more.
12 million more registered Democrats in the country than Republicans. The Republicans rely on independents voting for them.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's like your base is not really there, and well, your base is not diverse enough.
Yeah,
So it's like, so I get why DeSantis is like doubling down, but it's like, yeah, but when it comes to the general election, all that stuff comes back. It comes
yeah,
back very hard, and I don't think Republicans are stupid, and so I think a lot of them realize like, yeah, you went too far, and you're not gonna you won't get elected in a general, and we know that.
yeah. And
So
that's all Republicans care about at the end of the day is winning. They don't care about
they care
who
about
is.
winning, yeah,
They would vote for any Republican on top of the ticket as long as the Republicans win.
yeah,
I
and
don't
they
think
don't think he can. I don't think they think he can win. I think Republicans, the majority of them, think that he went way too far, and they know that he'll lose in the general
although
because he
the
won't.
ways they think he went too far was not the same way as we do. They probably just think he went too hard on Trump. That's how they think he went too far.
Well, that hurts him with Trump's base, but I
Yeah.
think that the moderate Republic it hurt the moderate
Yeah.
Republicans because you kind of alienate the black vote because there are black Republicans. A lot of people don't realize that, but
Mhm.
there are a lot. So you hurt the black, you you attack the blacks, you attack the Latinos, which is a very strong base for Republicans.
Yeah, Latinos are moving pretty a lot of them are moving towards Republicans. I'd say maybe it's
Yeah,
30% of them versus 70%, but it's a lot
well,
better.
I think a lot of it's the Cuban. That's the Cuban vote. So a lot of Cubans tend to be
It's not
Republican.
just the Cubans, but in Florida, yes.
I, I think Democrats tend to be more. This is why I see, and I could be wrong because I'm not a statistician. I don't pay attention that hard. I think the Latino vote is very diverse, and you're never going to be able to peg which party. But with general being very general, Cubans tend to vote Republican, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans tend to vote Democratic.
I agree with that. But there are
Overgeneralizing it, but that's
I think that's
generally
a good
how it works.
assessment, especially
Huh?
since Republicans are the ones that campaign against either Puerto Rican independence or Puerto Rican statehood. So that kind of turns off all the Puerto Ricans. And then Trump is all Mexicans are rapists and this and that. So maybe there's
Yeah.
a lot of Argentinians or a lot of any sort of
Yeah.
South Americans that they're kind of like, well, he's not talking about us. And
Yeah. Yeah.
plus there is a
You're right.
distinction between there's like Hispanic whites too. That's the
Yes.
thing people talk about. Not all Hispanics are even like darker.
No, they don't all think the same. No, no, no. I don't. I wouldn't say that. I
No, no,
say,
no, I didn't say you're implying that.
oh no, no. Yeah, I would just say more
They
general,
benefit from white
based on
supremacy.
countries. But yeah, within those countries, there's blacks, there's mixed Latinos, there's brown, there's black like my color, there's
Yeah,
brown, and there's white like South, and they're all over the place. And yeah, and they tend to vote. They have different experiences in their
yeah.
countries,
But
which determine.
there are white Latinos that benefit from white supremacy,
Oh
especially in
yeah,
here.
sure,
That's what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
That's the type that could vote for Ron DeSantis, that kind of stuff. Because I've
Yeah,
seen
but they love Trump.
Latinos.
Those white
Yeah,
Latinos that you're talking like that, you're talking
yeah,
about, they love Trump. I don't know. They love the
exactly.
brashness of Trump.
Especially because they already made it across the border, so it's a lot easier for them to say, let's build a
Yeah,
wall.
man. Send those other people back. It's like, wait,
Yeah,
didn't you just come here last week? It's like, no, but I'm American now, so the rest of them they can go away. And it's like, yeah, I don't know how that works, but sure. But yeah, you're right. You're 100% right on that. There's a lot that are like that that are white
especially
Latinos.
especially because these are the immigrants that left these countries. So they're not
Yeah,
necessarily like, oh, I love Guatemala. That's why I
no,
left. No, no, these are ones that they will be like, Trump is right. It is a shithole. These governments are
yeah, they
corrupt.
would say that.
So they'll talk a lot of shit about their old countries, and they'll try to restrict
Well,
immigration from those countries, despite every single American being an immigrant or former immigrant, and them benefiting from lax immigration policies, even though we don't generally have those. But
well, a lot of them, we bring up such a good point, Seth, because a lot of them are kicked out of their countries
yeah,
and they're sent to America. Yeah, people always make a big deal about the migrants crossing and the poor people crossing. They never talk about the rich people who just get kicked out and they
yeah,
just have to fly in. They don't talk about that kind of immigration because that's the immigration they want. You know, it's like you want those people to come in, the ones with the money, but the people in their country didn't want those people here.
yeah. They
Yeah,
just hyperfixate on the ones that have to physically cross a border. They don't
yeah,
care
because they're the
as
poor
much
ones. Yeah,
about the ones that violate their green cards or like let them expire. And they don't care about
because
the
those
rich
tend to,
immigrants. They don't care about the white immigrants. They just care about poor Latinos.
how many white immigrants you ever see cross the border though?
Oh, I mean, it happens. Happens in
I mean, I'm
Canadian
just saying,
immigrants,
every time I see a news station, it's always a brown or black crossing the border, who tends
especially
to
the
be
news
more
for sure.
poor. Huh?
Oh, well, with on the news, definitely. And kind of what
On
I
the
was saying
news, yeah, on
about
the news.
like white immigrants can overstay their visas, stuff like that too. It's from Europe.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't care about that. And Republicans don't care about that. They only care about
No,
people physically crossing a border because they care
that's
so much about an arbitrary line. That's really what they care about. And also white supremacy. They see all these darker complexioned people with waving different flags, and they say they're going to change up our culture. They're going to change our
yep.
society. They want us all
Mm,
speaking Spanish. They want this and that. I don't want to change. They're trying to come here.
mm,
I was already here. I don't need to change. They need to change for
yeah,
us. They need to assimilate. It's just a
yeah,
white supremacist assimilationist attitude, essentially. They either
yeah.
need to assimilate or we need to segregate them. That's kind of how they
Yeah,
view this.
and that's the thing. Well, look. I'm all for once you're here and you're legally here, you have to speak the language. I don't. I'm one of those people who are like, no, you have to learn English because we have a national identity.
I don't think it
You
needs to
know,
be forceful, but like, bro, how are you going to survive without knowing English in the United States?
exactly, right? So that's what I don't. Well, when you say forceful, what do you mean by that? Like mandated?
That's what I'm
Like
saying.
it?
Like, I think a lot of Republicans would say like, you must, we must mandate they learn English, but like, I don't know. If you go to an American school, yeah, you should probably have American
Learn English? Yeah,
English taught. Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know how you could realistically mandate somebody learn English, but like, if you want to
well,
work a job, you should probably learn English. That's the thing.
exactly. But there's a lot of times, like I can only speak really for Haitian culture. A lot of people come here sometimes, and they don't assimilate. They don't want to learn the language. They don't want to find a job, and that's on us as a community. Because even I would say that as a community, I tell them like, no, you need to learn the language. You need to be a contributing society. Like you're here, you left the your oppression that you were at, but
Hmm.
now that you're here, you need to assimilate, get a job, be a working citizen.
I don't think
You
you need
know,
to assimilate, but you need to
well, I'm saying
be.
assimilate as is to speak the language and understand the culture that you're
Yeah,
in.
I don't think that's necessarily assimilate. Assimilate would be more like you need to drop your cultural identifiers. You need to drop your traditions and participate in our traditions and become. Assimilate would be like just become white instead of
Oh,
be able
well,
be multifaceted.
maybe that's the political definition of it.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about more
that's
of
just why
like,
I'm clarifying. Yeah,
yeah, the Webster Dictionary of assimilate. The For me, I let me just tell you why I define that. Just
yeah,
just mixing yourself into the culture, and that's but not like giving up your own identity. I don't believe in that. I
for sure.
believe that your identity makes up. I always always hear me say that the diversity of the identities of these different nationalities is what America is. America's never no one's truly American unless you have that immigrant background because that's what makes America America. It's
Yeah.
a country full of immigrants, and
Not to say
so
Native Americans aren't immigrants or
huh?
aren't American because they didn't have an immigrant background, but although
Yeah.
they kind of did like 10,000 years ago, whatever.
Well, no, Indians are they're true Americans. So I mean, they're the Americans. Americans. We're the Americans that were on TV. Americans that we call Americans are immigrants, but the
Exactly.
Native Americans are actually Americans.
They're more American than us, at least, even if they immigrated across the Bering Strait 10,000 years ago or whatever it was. So
From Alaska too. Jesus,
yeah,
that's
well,
that's insane.
that's what they say, especially because um, they're very similar, like ethnic background to like Hawaiians, Filipinos, like Mongolian,
Asian.
like that all. Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah,
they descended from that side. They kind of moved over to the United States, like before United
that
States
makes sense.
existed.
I mean,
And
it
then
makes sense
yeah,
because it was like one. And sorry, guys, if we're going back to Earth science here, but it was like that's not Earth science. That's geography class.
yeah,
It was like one big
Pangea.
what was that? Pangea. Yeah, that's the word. And right, so that's when we were all like migrated, and all of us started in Africa. Well,
Yeah,
some scholars debate that, but then some say we're some migrated from Australia, which I was like, okay.
no way, no. The
No,
Australians.
that's a new theory that there was like they found some fossils that were older than the African fossils
Well,
in
I mean
Australia.
that's possible. I don't think we. I think we originated from Africa, but there could have been people there a very long time ago. Plus, there's a lot of evidence that there was civilization and land in Antarctica before the ice age and stuff. Like
I've
there's
it's a complete sidebar, guys. I know it's not really
yeah,
on topic,
oh, we go wherever the
but
conversation.
I've been researching that a lot about Antarctica and art. There's like there's so much hidden things there. That's why we're not allowed to go on there.
Yeah.
So that's really a thing, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's some strong evidence,
Oh man,
and it would explain a lot of
I'm into
things,
that.
a lot of missing aspects of civilization. Humans are supposed to existed for probably like 100,000 years or more. I don't know. It's a long time, but yet all we have recorded is like 10,000 years max. Like Gobekli Tepe, maybe 12,000 years ago, 10,000 BC or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's the earliest recording or form of civilization we have discovered. But like
You think Australia has like more?
what was that?
You think Australia has like Australia? Excuse me, Antarctica. You think Antarctica has like more like older fossils and stuff like that?
Oh, I bet you there would be. It's just so hard to like investigate. Just like they talk about how there's more to, not more, but there's so much underwater we've not discovered yet. Like the amount of species, there's just these places, these environments that are so hard to discover and research are probably where the biggest secrets are held because we have
Yeah,
uncovered everything else we could that's on the surface. It's in areas
that's
that we can.
true.
There's so much secrets in these places that
Yeah.
are so hard to investigate.
Do you think these UFOs are like coming to Antarctica? I gotta ask because we're going down that rabbit hole, so I gotta like figure like go
I
down that
don't
rabbit
know
hole.
for sure, but it
Uh,
wouldn't surprise me.
wouldn't surprise me either.
I would not be shocked.
I was watching about that the other day. Like I don't know, something on like History Channel where they were talking about how Harry Reid was like the pioneer
Oh
of
yeah.
like declassifying and creating budgets to investigate it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So
You know,
there is something out
we did technically promise last episode to talk about aliens, so we'll touch on it a little bit.
there. Yeah, we did. We'll touch on it a little
It's
bit.
our
Let's
excuse.
try to let's try to wrap up this while Seth queues up the alien UFO.
Oh, I don't have anything. We
You don't
already
have the meeting? Okay, we'll
but
just talk about it.
we can just talk about it. Yeah. Well,
Okay, yeah.
there's also some I don't even know if they're conspiracy theories as much as they're just theories because it's not
Mm-hmm.
like conspiracy. It's just sort of that we have civilizations that pre-existed, you know, the 10,000 years or whatever like that, and they had
Mm-hmm.
much more advanced technology than we knew had existed 5 to 10,000 years, you know. But we lost a lot of that technology when the civilizations collapsed, when the Library of Alexandria burned, when I don't know. I mean, we've had multiple situations where populations have been wiped out through diseases, through meteors, through ice age, this and that. But we have had there's a lot of like what is it? Plato talked a lot about Atlantis and how it was the central hub of the entire world, and like
Mm-hmm.
there was these giant civilizations, and he described them, and basically they're kind of in the Turkey, northern Africa, and the east side area, maybe in the ocean, maybe it's just in that general area
Mm-hmm.
that they talk about, like, there was a giant civilization, they had more advanced technologies, and they built the pyramids with their more advanced technologies, and it ceased to exist. And maybe these aliens are, in reality there's some sort of connection between the two, or maybe they're just form of technology that pre-existed. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation on that part, but I mean there is a lot of like uh, what I mentioned, Gobekli Tepe, which is like the oldest form of civilization that we found. Like it was like 12,000.
How do you spell it?
You know, GOB. It's the umlaut O with the two dots. Gobekli, BLECKI, and then TEPE, and it's like in Turkey, and there's a lot of indications that this could be a part of like the Atlantis.
Okay,
I'm
yeah, spell it again.
sure
Spell it
that's.
again.
Let me see if I spelled it right.
Yeah.
B
B-O-B.
O GOBEKLI.
Bulky. I I
Did you
totally
find it?
don't totally mess up the spelling. Is it D-O-B-E-K?
G O GOBEKLI, and then capital TPE. They're two separate words.
Yeah, it seems like it's spelled one way here. It's in Turkey. This is where
Yeah.
like the Petra rocks are and stuff like that.
The what rocks? What did you say?
Well, there's like a. I don't think it's in Turkey though.
Are
I
you
think
thinking of
it's like
Stonehenge?
no, there's like something called the Petra rocks, but that's I think it's like by Israel or something.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah, no.
there could have been populations that had more advanced technology. Probably not as advanced in some areas as we have now, but like a lot more than they did in the feudal age. That kind of stuff,
No, I
where they
definitely
can.
think that I definitely think that they're. It's weird. I think that we're constantly finding new things, but really it's the same thing. I know it's weird to explain it, but it's more like I think the technology, all the technology we know, we just don't know how to connect it together. And I
Yeah,
think, and I think that that goes to just like you said, just missing information. And so I think humans right now, what we're doing is trying to connect everything together. And I see it, and this is really going off, but I see us doing it now. I see a convergence of all the things that I learned becoming one like thing now. Because now you had all these different scientists, you had archaeologists, you had biologists, you had chemists, and you had physicists and physics, and now it's all becoming one idea. And now all these branches are starting
Yeah,
to be like, hey, we have these common elements in all these different fields, and there's fields are starting to merge into one. And I think that's ultimately, where we're going to become in society is once we keep filling these missing informations, we will get that, I guess, alien feeling that we want, that we've discovered some alien race,
yeah.
whatever. I think that it's just us converging together as all our technologies and understanding and findings are going to converge into one idea eventually.
Yeah, I think it's like the successor of religion, essentially.
Yeah.
As religion becomes a smaller part of our society, and we used religion to piece everything together and to
Hmm.
give us all meaning. This is the origin of everything. This is our meaning on Earth. We're using science to like decentrally put all the pieces together. Like
I've always,
instead of just having unanswered questions, they just use the scientific method to answer these questions.
yeah.
And well, gravity isn't some magical force where everything's hovering, and no, it's actually these sort of gravitational forces, this and
Hmm.
that. It's just
Hmm.
sort of what we used to perceive as magic is lost as magic now because we've given it scientific meaning and understanding.
Yeah.
When in reality magic is all around us. It's everything that exists, and it's unique and random, and we don't really have a good explanation of how it got here and this and that. But then if you can piece together and finding the understanding of how everything came together through evolutionary theory and this and that. But at the end of the day, we're just having a human existence and
Yeah.
we're trying to piece everything together,
Yeah. I
and
believe
it's been
it's all a trial and error, and that's what makes life so great. It's trial and error. It's like the Greeks and the Romans all wanted to do something like America. They failed.
yeah,
They failed.
Romans were pretty
The
close.
Romans were close, and we took the ideas like, oh, you messed up here, you messed up there, you messed up here. Let's move that around here,
Yeah,
and now we have America. And really, now it's America, and there's only one superpower outside of America, and that's China.
yeah, pretty much.
And there
India
was,
India's low key. They're kind of making Russia look like they might like Russia might be the fourth power. Like India's really doing well to advance themselves. Like they're China in the 80s right now. Like they're
yeah.
like really growing their GDP, and their population is increasing dramatically and having more of an influence on the global stage. I feel like nobody ever talks about India. And India is kind
They
of,
don't.
I feel like in the next 10, 15 years, India is going to be the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, right now, just in their two countries alone, is what 3 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they
And we don't
can
talk about the biggest country on earth, biggest
just.
population on earth, India. You know?
Oh, they surpassed China.
Yeah, India is bigger than China now.
Oh
It's
wow.
it's marginal, but India is a larger population than China, and it's
Oh,
kind of
that's wow.
weird that we have so much such a and India is the largest democracy on earth if you think about it.
Brings me to a weird thing and idea that I've been thinking about politically. And then we're it's another sidebar, but
Sidebars are the best.
they are the best. Have you ever thought, and I could be wrong, and I could be complete away from my ethos as a progressive in this one. Have you
Yeah,
ever thought, think
it is
about
what it
like,
is.
yeah, have you that maybe America should move into expansion to better compete with
It's
China
like
and
a
India?
globalist. I don't know about necessarily adding states unless they wanted to be part of the United States.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not
There's the
talking about
concept
conquering
of
states.
like, should we be more unified as a world so we can protect civil liberties? Like, should the UN be its own governing like body? And then we're more like states as countries. You know, what I mean, we all collectively
I see what
become
you're
part of.
saying.
I
Yeah,
don't know. That could be a good concept. I don't know about necessarily imperializing or anything like that. That's a
I don't
problem.
believe in imperialism. I believe in
If we
the
bought
states.
Greenland, maybe like I wouldn't be
I would
against.
think the countries need to volunteer themselves to
Yeah,
wanting to do this. I wouldn't. I'm not talking about invading any country,
yeah, of
but
course. I knew you weren't.
yeah, yeah. But I was just thinking, it's like the problem with globalism, which I like the idea, but the world is too vast, and for it to be run by one government,
Yeah,
it's too vast.
at least a
But
central body. Like they're
yeah,
doing.
yeah, it needs to be broken into regions, and
Yeah.
regions need to work together as one collective whole,
Kind of
with
like how
with
states
the
are
UN.
self-governing, but then they also have a
Yeah,
you know,
the answer to someone.
yeah,
So, I think that that's what the UN was supposed to be, but it hasn't been that because for whatever what it is, the way they set it up structurally, not everyone's equal in the UN, and that's kind of that messes it up because it's like, well, I'm America, I give you resources, so you do my bidding. Russia's like, well, I'm Russian, I give you resources, you do my bidding. China's like, well, I give you resources. So it's like
yeah.
okay, whatever. It's three countries that runs it. It's not really a UN. It's
And
not
it's
really
kind of the
united.
danger of the UN is that there's even more risk of a centralized consolidation of power. You know what I mean? That's the real risk. It's like you like to imagine a UN where the United States or American liberal, these people are the ones running everything and deciding let's end these human rights violations in this country and that country. But in reality, is there more liberal democracies in the world than there are fascistic dictatorships or monarchies
Yeah,
and that? Like, do you
I
want to
don't.
take that risk?
I
Do you
mean, I
want
don't even know how
Putin?
many.
So good.
No, I was just gonna say I don't even know how many fascist governments exist. It's like what, three?
I think it's more than you think, but they're mostly in like Africa and like
Okay, yeah, but because from my understanding, it's only like three. I mean, and I can name three too.
fascist is a
Cuba.
broad term. We'll say
Yeah,
authoritarian autocracies.
yeah, I think there's like three
There's more
still.
than three.
Three that's meaningful, I
Three
guess.
powerful countries,
Three
sure.
powerful
Yeah,
ones. Yeah,
because there's
that's
North
like
Korea, China, Russia,
and
but Belarus is a dictatorship. There's like countries in Africa that are like full on monarchies, like in the
they
traditional
are
sense.
monarchies, but their power,
No,
their
I'm
voice
saying
and
like
power.
there's at least one country that's like the king literally makes every decision for the country, like full on
Yeah,
monarchies.
but okay, but I'm talking about in terms of global power. That I don't think there's. I mean, outside of Russia, China, I think that's
Although
it.
Modi in India, India still is a democracy, but Modi is an ideological fascist.
Yeah.
He just has not consolidated power yet. So that's the danger. He literally is the same ideological bent as Putin,
Mm,
but he's very very popular in India, but he's currently not gone past his term limits or his term or whatever. So we'll see
yeah.
how that goes. But India's a hit or miss at this point. Like we could see if they replaced him with like a social democratic leader, we're in the
Mm,
clear. But he is like Trump of India. And Bolsonaro was very dictatorial. He was trying to do a coup in Brazil, and he ended up losing, and they replaced him. So there's a
yeah.
lot of places,
Well,
even if they
Brazil one's
don't
very
have.
progressive, right? From my
What was
understanding,
that? What did you say?
Brazil one, their
Yeah,
president is very
Brazil
progressive.
replaced with Lula, and Lula is he actually is like liberal socialist, like literally my ideology, except for his foreign policy sucks. But he kind of goes in between like a social democrat for or like a liberal. Like
Okay.
he's at least progressive in he would be progressive in the United States. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But he was also president before that. I think maybe right before Bolsonaro, but at least the one before that. So he was pre-existing leader in the country. So it's not like it was a dramatic. But there's a lot of places around the world that are becoming more progressive. But there's also a lot of places that are becoming more fascistic, more dangerous to the rest of the world. And it
Yeah.
depends on who's influencing them and which trade blocks they're part of and that kind of stuff.
But
Like
that's what I'm
United
saying.
States. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you saying?
Oh, I was just going
You
to say,
said,
United States is focusing so much money on like global defense and military, like bolstering their military power. When China has a quarter the size military budget as us, yet they're like influencing countries all around the world diplomatically and financially, economic trade. Like they're
mm,
starting to influence Africa. Lula joined an economic bloc with China, instead
Yeah.
of the United States because they didn't want to be a part of the dollar. And the United States has a bad history of literally trying to control Brazil and South America and all these countries with the corporations and the corporate influence over trade policies and
Yeah, it's called the
basically
brick, right?
uh,
It's called the brick. The
what's that?
new currency block.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lula
That's
did
that
join.
was very powerful. That was very bold of him to do that.
Yeah,
By the way.
there's and I think India is part of that one too, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, like it's not really good for us to be, you know, ceding ground to China when China is a statist capitalist country.
Yeah,
They're
but what I'm saying is that they're growing. Like
yeah,
what you're saying about Africa, they're literally buying Africa.
yeah,
So now they have China and Africa, and we're sitting here. Like I said, every organization, every company dies when they don't change. And I think in every society, that's generally, if you look at history, that's what happens. Usually, when society falls, is because they didn't change. Um, when I'm looking at us staying stagnant at 300 million people, 50 states, I'm like, I don't know if that's that thing in our best interest. And I think expanding is the next thing for us, the next future wave, because it's
here's
like,
how I see it. I
yeah,
don't
go
think
ahead.
we need to expand our borders. I think we need more Americans, and I think that happens through immigration. We have so much unused land in the United States. We
That
are
is very
pretty much
true.
the same size as China physically, right?
That's very true. Very,
But
very true.
China has 4 times as many people as us. Our
Yeah,
problem is we don't have as many people as we could because we're so restrictive about immigration, and we need them all to be rich immigrants who only add and they're only skilled and educated.
yeah,
No, I mean we've seen immigration is one of the most verified forms of economic growth that exists.
yeah,
There's a reason why Luxembourg, which has one of the largest GDP per capitas in the entire world, is not
yeah.
considered an economic powerhouse, while China is, because China has
Mhm.
billions of people and they can develop their economy in all these different ways, and their government can fund more projects and stuff like that. Well, Luxembourg is just stuck trading with like 2 countries, and they have tourism and stuff. It's not about having a wealthy population. It's about being an economically diverse and dynamic economy,
Yeah,
and that happens through having more jobs, which more consumers, more producers, more workers, more job creators. Like all this sort of stuff comes with immigration. So we need to welcome more people into the border. We need to create resources for them to develop their own skills. They become educated, become entrepreneurs. We need that, and we can do stuff like we should add Washington D.C. to its statehood. We should add Puerto Rico. Guam is out there unrepresented. They're a territory. Like let's either let them be a state or let's let them be independent. There's no reason we
yeah,
need to have just like territories that don't really get. Our whole country is founded on uh, represent taxation without representation or whatever,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
we have we are taxing these territories, and they have like elected bodies, but they don't get a say in the government that controls them.
Yeah,
It doesn't really make sense. We need to start, I don't know, consolidating our base in that way, and welcoming immigrants and growing the United States as a powerhouse, not through economic imperialism,
hmm,
not through military imperialism, but through diplomacy and trade
yeah,
and soft power, just welcoming other countries into our trade bloc, expanding, reducing tariffs, expanding trade deals. This kind of stuff is what grows our diplomatic relationships with the rest of the world. There's a reason why China doesn't get aggressive with us, not but along beyond just the fact that we're a nuclear power. Is they have so many economic ties to us.
yeah,
Like there's, I don't know, they're the second largest foreign investor in the United States, behind Japan, which is kind of shocking. You
yeah,
wouldn't expect that, but it economic ties are really what keeps countries from going to war with each other. Because gets countries go to war, other than like egoic border disputes, is economic reasons. That's why we were in Vietnam. That's why we were in Afghanistan. That's why we were in Iraq. These were all economic reasons why we were in these countries.
Yeah.
But if we had diplomatic relationships with all these countries, we wouldn't be able to do that, because the billionaires that are trying to consolidate their wealth would not want to risk an economic catastrophe by losing like all these economic ties and all these investors. There's a reason why we're so soft with Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is so buddy buddy with us, despite them being pretty much one of the least democratic countries on earth.
Mm-hmm.
But we have such close economic ties to them. It's kind of what keeps everything going, is a globalized world economy. So economic globalism is kind of the only path to save all of us, essentially.
Exactly. I like that. Well, guys, this is kind of a interesting.
ADHD episode.
Yeah, we talked a lot. We went politics, went to policy, and then that's a little UFO there in the middle. And but yeah, next week we look forward to seeing you guys. We're gonna go into definitely more deeper into the UFO topic because that's a very
I
interesting
don't
topic.
think
I
that's
like.
necessarily true. It depends on what develops. If more
Yeah,
comes out, we will talk about it. Guaranteed.
we will talk about it. We'll talk about globalization and stay tuned for the next couple of weeks because the Republican debates are going to start popping up. And
Is it really? When does that start?
yeah, let's see what's the first one. Hold on, let's take a look.
I do know that the Trump hearing is supposed to be in January. Am I right?
Yes, so we'll cover that.
Oh, for
We'll,
sure.
we'll give you the legal perspective of that. I know someone asked us a legal question today. Is it legal to go door to door and ask for money for Ukraine? Like, what do I need to do? Goes first.
It
Paperwork goes in order to
depends.
make that okay. I don't think it's actually illegal per se,
No,
but
it depends on how you
how are you going to
represent the
send that
situation.
money over to Ukraine?
Yeah.
That might be that you
If
might
you're
have to talk to a lawyer
representing
for
like a
that.
nonprofit, you're probably good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but if you,
And even then, how they send it over, it's going to be probably vetted by the State Department
yeah,
because there's that whole thing with Russia. We don't want to seem like we're, you know, aiding and abetting. So I hope we answered your question, Sega Saturn for life. But legally, you can raise money, but then you're gonna have to figure out what organization has ties to Ukraine that's been sanctioned by the State Department. Um,
yeah.
but if you have more questions about that, contact a local lawyer with that information. And guys, I mean, you guys, any topic sometimes you guys, rely on our expertise on, we'll definitely chime in, just like
Or
Sega
anybody
Saturn.
that you think would be a really great guest.
Yeah, we'll
Because we
definitely
love having people
respond.
to talk to.
Yeah, great guest. Well, if you have a topic that we may not be as versed on, me and Seth, we'll find guests to talk about it on the next show. So
Also, in the next few weeks, I would love to find a Republican to have on the show that we could talk to. My
yeah,
mother actually requested that. She said she wants to listen to us talk to a Republican. I'm like, you know what? We should. We talk to a
yeah,
libertarian. There's no reason.
I like that, and we can, I found out the debate is August 23rd. So
August 23rd, this month?
this month's the
What?
first debate.
For
I
real?
have a buddy who's a Republican. I can ask him if he wants to
That would be
join
cool.
us for the debate.
That would be
I
cool.
actually have two friends that are Republicans. The second one's not going to go on here. He's
Yeah.
very old, but he doesn't even have like Zoom or anything like that.
Yeah. If you know
But my
somebody
other buddy,
that's knowledgeable and they would make a good defense for their party or whatever, I don't want to
yeah,
have some random guy that doesn't know shit and thinks that, Democrats are sex trafficking children through the DNC and draining them for adrenochrome, and they were trying to censor the Sound of Freedom movie. And I don't need those guys, but if somebody's reasonable and is willing to talk to us, I want to have a good discussion.
yeah. Like so, here's the list of the debate. Donald Trump. There's a possibility he's not going to show up, but he's supposed to be on there. Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Vivek
Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy, He's gonna have to come up with a nickname. Chris Christie and Doug Burgum.
Okay.
And I
It's
think Christie
good
would
lineup,
mop the floor with every single last one of those guys.
pretty
So,
much.
so Donald Trump
I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a really loud person, and he would be very contentious in the debates. I don't think anybody would really. People have been comparing him to Pete Buttigieg.
yeah, but Chris Christie
Like,
is an amazing debater.
oh yeah, for
From
sure.
like,
I'm just saying
yeah,
he's the only interesting voice, even though I detest him.
I mean, he does have a great voice, but debates are about punchlines, and Chris Christie's the king of that. It's like
I didn't mean his actual voice. I meant like he's a debater.
oh, no, bitch. No, I like I said, I suspect Chris Christie to win all the debates. I mean, what I seen what he did in his last election,
I agree
it's
with
like,
you.
man, he's a really good debater. I've never seen some that good before, but so he probably mopped the floor with all of them in terms of debating.
Yeah.
But politics, that's like one very small equation of the whole picture. But we will have that topic available to you right after, because I'm pretty sure it's on a Tuesday, August 23rd.
Okay. Yeah, we could. We'll figure out. Maybe we'll watch it live or something. But
That would
that's
be
to be
cool.
discussed.
That would be cool. Yeah. All right, guys. So we'll discuss it. We'll give you guys more feedback as the weeks come along. And that'd be awesome because that's before my
Yeah, I'm excited
vacation.
for that.
Yeah. So prepared for that to go live during that debate. And we'll see you next week.
We will see you guys next week. Make sure you subscribe, you retweet, you like, you share. We need as much support as we can get. We're still trying to grow. And I appreciate you for your viewership. So we'll see you next week.
See ya.